Welcome. Today we're exploring a topic that challenges many common assumptions about attraction and desire. How women develop desire over time, even when that initial spark isn't immediately present. We've all heard the narrative that attraction is instant, that you either feel it or you don't. But research in psychology, neuroscience, and relationship studies tells us a far more nuanced story, particularly when it comes to how many women experience desire. This isn't about manipulation or convincing someone to like you. It's about understanding the genuine psychological and emotional processes through which desire can emerge and deepen. Whether you're trying to understand your own patterns of attraction, navigate the complexities of dating, or simply curious about human psychology, this exploration offers valuable insights. Let me be clear from the start. This discussion respects agency and authenticity. We're not talking about wearing someone down or ignoring clear disinterest. We're talking about the space between no attraction and strong attraction, that gray area where curiosity, respect, and connection can potentially blossom into something more. So let's begin by dismantling some myths and understanding the science behind desire itself. Part 1. The Science of Desire. 15 minutes. Section 1A. 2 types of desire. First, we need to understand that desire isn't monolithic. Researchers have identified 2 primary types of sexual desire, and this distinction is crucial to everything we'll discuss today. The first is spontaneous desire. This is what most people think of when they imagine attraction, that immediate, visceral pull towards someone. You see them across a crowded room, you feel a flutter in your stomach, your heart races, your pupils dilate, you're instantly drawn to them. It's that electric moment when chemistry is palpable and immediate. This is the desire that rom-coms and dating apps are built around. It's what we see in movies when 2 people lock eyes and just know. The second type is responsive desire. This is desire that emerges in response to context, emotional connection, and stimulation, not as an initial automatic response. It's desire that develops through interaction, through feeling safe, through experiencing pleasure in someone's company, through gradually discovering layers of compatibility and connection. Think of it as desire that needs to be awakened rather than desire that arrives unbidden. Here's what's fascinating. Research by Emily Nagoski, author of Come As You Are, and others, has shown that while men tend to experience primarily spontaneous desire, a significant portion of women, somewhere around 30% according to some studies, though others suggest it may be even higher, experience predominantly responsive desire. And here's the critical point. This isn't dysfunction. It's not a problem to be fixed. It's simply a different but completely normal pathway to desire. What does this mean in practical terms? It means that for many women, attraction isn't something that hits them immediately when they see someone across a room. Instead, it's something that builds through getting to know someone, through shared experiences, through emotional intimacy, and through the gradual recognition of qualities that resonate with their deeper needs and values. A woman with primarily responsive desire might go on a first date and think, "He seems nice, interesting even, but I don't feel anything." This doesn't mean attraction won't develop. It means it needs different conditions to emerge, conditions that simply can't exist in a first meeting. It's also worth noting that many people experience a combination of both types. Someone might feel spontaneous desire in some contexts or with some people, and responsive desire in others. Desire patterns can also shift across a lifetime, influenced by hormones, life experiences, relationship history, and even stress levels. Let's go deeper into the brain for a moment. When we experience attraction, several systems are activated, and they don't all operate on the same timeline. The initial physical attraction, that instant spark, is largely driven by the limbic system, our brain's emotional center. It processes visual cues, symmetry in faces, body language, pheromones, and other immediate sensory signals. This happens incredibly quickly, within milliseconds. It's automatic, unconscious, and rooted in evolutionary mechanisms designed to help us quickly assess potential mates. But sustained attraction and desire involve much more complex neural networks that take time to activate. The prefrontal cortex, our reasoning center, evaluates compatibility, shared values, and long-term potential. This is a slower, more deliberate process. You can't assess someone's values in a glance. You need conversations, observations, and time. The reward system, involving dopamine pathways, becomes activated through positive interactions and emotional bonding. Every time you have a good conversation, laugh together, or share a meaningful moment, dopamine is released, creating positive associations with that person. This is a cumulative process. Each positive interaction builds on the last. Oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone or love hormone, increases through non-sexual touch like hugs or hand-holding, through eye contact, through intimate conversation, and through acts of care and support. Oxytocin creates feelings of trust, closeness, and attachment, but it requires interaction to build. You can't get an oxytocin boost from someone you've never spent time with. Serotonin also plays a role, particularly in the obsessive thoughts that characterize early infatuation. Interestingly, research has shown that people in early-stage romantic love have serotonin levels similar to those with OCD, which explains why you can't stop thinking about someone when you're falling for them. What's crucial here is timing. While some neural systems respond instantly, you can find someone physically attractive within seconds. Others require time and repeated positive experiences to activate. For people with responsive desire patterns, these slower-building neural pathways involving oxytocin, serotonin, and the prefrontal cortex are often more influential in generating attraction than the quick-fire limbic response. This is why someone might become more attractive over time. Your brain is literally changing how it responds to them as these deeper systems activate. Section 1C. The Dual Control Model. Professor Eric Jansen and John Bancroft developed what's called the Dual Control Model of Sexual Response at the Kinsey Institute. Think of it like a car with both an accelerator and a brake, and understanding this model is key to understanding how desire develops. The accelerator represents factors that promote sexual interest, attraction cues, positive context, feeling desired, emotional connection, novelty, physical arousal, and anticipation. These are the things that turn you on, that make you want to move toward intimacy. The brake represents factors that inhibit sexual interest, stress, feeling unsafe, past negative experiences, concerns about consequences like pregnancy or STIs, lack of trust, body image concerns, distractions, exhaustion, and relationship conflict. These are the things that make desire difficult or impossible, regardless of how attractive someone is. Here's the key insight that changes everything. For desire to emerge, it's not just about pushing the accelerator harder. Often, it's more about releasing the brake. You can have all the right attraction cues in the world, but if the brakes are on, desire won't flow. This is particularly important for understanding women's desire. Research suggests that on average, women tend to have more sensitive brake systems than men. This isn't biological destiny, it's largely the result of socialization, life experiences, and the very real risks that come with sexuality for women in terms of both physical safety and social judgment. For many women, particularly those who've experienced socialization that emphasizes caution in relationships, or who've had negative past experiences, the brake system can be quite sensitive. This means that desire might not emerge until various inhibiting factors are addressed, until trust is established, safety is felt, stress is reduced, and emotional connection provides a foundation. Think about it this way. If a woman is stressed about work, worried about being judged, hasn't fully processed a past relationship wound, doesn't feel safe with someone yet, and is distracted by a dozen other life concerns, it doesn't matter how objectively attractive or charming someone is. The brakes are on. Desire requires removing those obstacles, not just adding more accelerator. This is why context matters so much for responsive desire. The same person who generates no attraction in one context, say a stressful first date where someone is nervous and self-conscious, might generate significant attraction in another context, where they feel relaxed, safe, and fully themselves. Understanding these mechanisms helps us see why initial attraction isn't always predictive of whether desire will develop. The brain needs time to activate certain pathways. The brakes need time to release as trust and safety build. Responsive desire needs the right context to awaken. Now let's explore the specific factors that contribute to desire developing over time. Part 2. The building blocks of developed desire. Section 2A. Safety and trust. The foundation upon which desire builds for many women is safety, both physical and emotional. And I want to be very clear here. This isn't a minor factor. For many women, safety is the prerequisite upon which everything else rests. This isn't just about physical safety, though that's certainly important. Physical safety means knowing that boundaries will be respected, that no will be heard and honored, that physical intimacy won't be pressured or coerced. It means feeling confident that you can be alone with someone without risk. But emotional safety is equally crucial, and it's often more subtle. Emotional safety means being able to be authentic without fear of judgment, ridicule, or rejection. It means knowing that vulnerability won't be weaponized later in an argument. It means that if you share something personal, a fear, an insecurity, a past wound, it won't be minimized, mocked, or used against you. It means that mistakes will be met with grace rather than contempt. Psychologist John Gottman's research on relationships has consistently shown that trust is built through small moments, what he calls sliding door moments. These are everyday interactions where someone makes a bid for connection and the other person either turns toward that bid or away from it. A bid might be as simple as, "Look at that sunset," or sharing something that happened during the day. Turning toward means engaging. Looking at the sunset, asking a follow-up question. Turning away means dismissing or ignoring the bid. When a woman shares something personal and is met with genuine interest and empathy rather than dismissiveness, trust builds incrementally. When she expresses a boundary, "I'm not ready for that yet," or "I need some space right now," and it's immediately respected without sulking or pressure, safety increases measurably. When she observes someone being kind to a server at a restaurant, or patient in frustrating circumstances, or honest even when lying would be easier, or apologizing sincerely when they've made a mistake, these observations accumulate like deposits in a trust account. None of these moments are inherently sexy. You don't hear someone say, "I knew I wanted him when he gracefully accepted my boundary." But they create the conditions where desire can emerge because they release the brake we discussed earlier. When the nervous system registers safety, when the brain isn't constantly scanning for threats or red flags, when a woman can relax into being herself, that's when desire has space to unfold. It's worth noting that for women who've experienced violations of trust or safety in past relationships, and statistically, that's a substantial number, this foundation of safety may take longer to establish. Past experiences can create protective mechanisms that are wise and necessary, even if they slow down the development of new connections. Section 2B. Emotional intimacy and being truly seen. There's a concept in psychology called feeling known and valued. It's the experience of being truly seen for who you are, not who someone wants you to be, not the role you play, not the persona you present to the world, but your authentic self, and being valued precisely for that authenticity. This kind of recognition is deeply powerful. When someone asks questions that go beyond surface-level small talk, not just, "What do you do?" but, "What do you love about what you do?" or, "What's something you believed as a kid that you don't believe anymore?" It signals genuine curiosity about your inner world. When someone remembers small details you've shared, that you're anxious about a presentation next week, that your sister is going through a difficult time, that you mentioned loving a particular author, it communicates that your words matter, that you matter. When someone notices changes in your mood or energy, "You seem quieter than usual today. Are you okay?" It shows attunement, the sense that they're paying attention to you specifically, not just enjoying your company generally. Research by Arthur Aaron, famous for his 36 questions that lead to love, demonstrated that structured vulnerability and mutual self-disclosure can create feelings of closeness remarkably quickly. In his studies, strangers who went through increasingly personal questions together often felt more connected than friends of many years. But in real life, this doesn't happen through a questionnaire. It happens through genuine curiosity, active listening, and reciprocal sharing that builds gradually over multiple conversations. The key word there is reciprocal. One-sided vulnerability doesn't create intimacy. It creates an imbalance. Emotional intimacy develops when both people are willing to be seen, when sharing goes both ways, when there's a rhythm of reveal and response. For many women, this emotional intimacy serves as a gateway to desire. It's not that emotional connection and sexual desire are the same thing, they're not, but rather that one creates the conditions for the other to emerge. When you feel deeply known and valued by someone, when conversations leave you feeling energized rather than drained, when you find yourself thinking about things they've said or sharing more of yourself than you typically do, these are signs that emotional intimacy is building. And for responsive desire, this intimacy is often the key that unlocks physical attraction. There's something almost paradoxical here. The more someone sees you, really sees you, including your flaws and fears, and still values you, the safer it becomes to desire them. Because desire itself requires vulnerability, requires letting someone affect you, requires risking rejection. That's much easier when trust and emotional intimacy have paved the way. Section 2C. Demonstrated character over time. Initial attraction often relies on surface-level cues: physical appearance, charisma, confidence, humor, the energy someone brings into a room. These things matter, but they don't tell you much about character. And desire that develops over time often rests on deeper observations of character that can only be revealed through time and varied circumstances. Consistency is a big factor here. Does someone's behavior remain aligned with their stated values? It's easy to say you value honesty, kindness, or ambition. It's another thing to demonstrate these values when it's inconvenient, when no one's watching, or when you're stressed. Are they kind not just to you, but to others? Especially to people who have less power or who can't offer them anything. How they treat service workers, how they talk about exes, how they respond when someone else is struggling. These reveal character more than anything they might say about themselves. How do they handle conflict, disappointment, or stress? Do they become defensive and blame others, or can they own their part in problems? When plans fall through or things don't go their way, do they adapt with grace or become petulant? When you disagree about something, can they engage respectfully, or do they need to win every argument? Do they take responsibility for their mistakes, or do they always have an excuse? Can they apologize genuinely, not the half-hearted, "I'm sorry you felt that way," but the real, "I messed up. I see how that affected you. I'll do better." These questions can't be answered in a first conversation or even a first few dates. They require observation over time and across different contexts. You need to see someone when they're tired, stressed, disappointed, challenged. You need to witness how they navigate difficulty. You need to see patterns, not just isolated moments. There's also the element of growth and depth. As someone reveals more layers of themselves, their passions, their vulnerabilities, their values, their dreams, their fears, the experiences that shape them, they often become more attractive. They become more real, more three-dimensional, more interesting. It's the opposite of the common fear that once someone really knows me, they won't want me. For many people, being truly known is when they become most desirable, because depth is compelling in a way that surface perfection never is. Authenticity, even with its imperfections, is often more attractive than a carefully curated persona. Section 2D. Competence and presence. Interestingly, research has shown that competence can be highly attractive, but not necessarily in the ways we might assume. It's not about being the most successful or the most impressive or having the most prestigious career. It's about being genuinely good at something, being engaged with the world, having purpose and passion. When someone lights up talking about their work, their hobby, or their cause, when they demonstrate skill, knowledge, or dedication, it reveals an inner life that's rich and engaged. This could be anything: the way someone cooks with intuition and care, how they solve complex problems at work, their dedication to a craft or art form, their knowledge about something they've studied deeply, the community they've built around a shared interest. Competence signals that someone is actively participating in their life, not just passively moving through it. There's something inherently attractive about watching someone do something they're good at, especially when they're unself-conscious about it, when they're in flow. It reveals character traits like persistence, curiosity, and discipline. It shows that they can commit to something and develop mastery. This connects to presence, which might be one of the most underrated elements of attraction. Someone who is truly present in conversations, who isn't constantly distracted by their phone or looking over your shoulder for someone more interesting, who engages fully with whatever they're doing. This quality of presence can become increasingly attractive over time. Presence means eye contact that feels comfortable rather than aggressive. It means they're not just waiting for their turn to talk, but actually listening to understand. It means they're with you when they're with you, not mentally elsewhere. In a distracted world, genuine presence is rare and therefore valuable. These qualities, competence and presence, often aren't apparent immediately. They emerge through shared experiences, through watching someone interact with the world, through witnessing how they show up in different situations. And as they emerge, they add dimension and depth that can transform someone from pleasant enough to genuinely compelling. These building blocks, safety, emotional intimacy, demonstrated character, and competence, create a foundation. But desire also develops through specific types of interactions and experiences. Let's explore those now. Part 3. The Catalysts. What actually sparks desire? Section 3A. Novelty and Shared Adventures. There's a famous study by Donald Dutton and Arthur Aaron from 1974, often called the Shaky Bridge Study. Researchers found that men who encountered a woman on a high, unstable suspension bridge were more likely to be attracted to her and to call her later than men who met the same woman on a low, stable bridge. The interpretation? Arousal from one source, the adrenaline and elevated heart rate from the scary bridge, can be partially attributed to another source, like the person you're with. The technical term is misattribution of arousal. Your brain registers physiological arousal, increased heart rate, heightened alertness, excitement, and can attribute those sensations to attraction rather than to their actual source. But beyond this specific psychological effect, novelty and shared experiences activate reward systems in the brain in ways that can catalyze desire. When we try new things together, our brains release dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure, motivation, and reward. Having adventures, whether that's travel to a new place, trying an activity you've never done, or simply exploring an unfamiliar neighborhood, creates bonds and positive associations. There's something powerful about facing challenges as a team, even small ones. When you navigate getting lost together, or figure out how to set up a tent, or work together to cook a complicated recipe, you're creating a micro-experience of partnership. You're seeing how someone problem solves, how they handle frustration, whether they can laugh at mishaps, whether they support or criticize. And when you successfully navigate these challenges together, it creates a sense of shared accomplishment. For women whose desire is more responsive, these shared experiences can be crucial catalysts. A hiking trip where you work together to navigate a difficult trail and then share the triumph of reaching the summit creates a very different context than sitting across from each other at a restaurant making small talk. A cooking class where you laugh through mistakes and end up creating something delicious together reveals personality in ways that a formal date never could. A concert where you both get lost in the music, or a museum where you discover you notice completely different things in the same painting, or even just getting caught in unexpected rain and running for shelter. These moments create the kind of context where attraction can ignite. Novelty also works against habituation. When we do the same thing repeatedly, our brains stop paying as much attention. It becomes routine. But new experiences force us to be present, to pay attention, to engage fully. And in that state of heightened attention and engagement, we're more likely to notice things about someone, to see them in a new light, to feel that spark of curiosity or attraction. This is why travel together, even just day trips, can shift relationships. You see someone outside their usual context. They see you outside yours, and that novelty creates space for desire to emerge or deepen. Playfulness and humor. Play is profoundly underrated in adult relationships, but it's a powerful driver of connection and desire. And I'm not talking about game playing or manipulation. I'm talking about genuine playfulness. When we play, whether that's teasing banter that feels good and reciprocal, silly games, spontaneous dancing in the kitchen, playful competition, or goofy inside jokes, we activate parts of ourselves that are often kept hidden in adult interactions. We become more authentic, less self-conscious, more joyful. We let our guard down in ways that feel safe, because play creates a space where things don't have to be serious or perfect. Research has consistently shown that shared laughter creates powerful bonds. When we laugh together, our brains release endorphins, natural feel-good chemicals that create pleasure and reduce pain. Laughter also releases oxytocin, that bonding hormone we discussed earlier. It reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, helping both people feel more relaxed. And crucially, laughter creates positive associations with the person who makes us laugh. But here's the nuance that matters. It's not about being funny in a performative way or trying to constantly entertain. That can actually feel exhausting or inauthentic. It's about creating space for lightness and play, about not taking yourself too seriously, about being able to find joy in simple moments. Some of the most attractive moments aren't scripted jokes, but spontaneous silliness. Making up ridiculous songs while doing dishes, having an absurd debate about something meaningless, doing impressions, sharing the kind of humor that makes no sense to anyone else but cracks both of you up. These moments of shared levity create intimacy because they require letting go of trying to be impressive or cool. For many women, a man who can be playful, who doesn't always need to be cool or impressive, who can be silly and vulnerable in his joy, who can laugh at himself, becomes increasingly attractive over time. Playfulness signals security, confidence, and the ability to not take everything so seriously. It suggests that being with this person will include joy and lightness, not just heavy conversations and serious energy. There's also something inherently attractive about someone who can make difficult things feel lighter. The ability to inject humor into a frustrating situation without dismissing the frustration, to find moments of levity in stress without being inappropriate. This is a sophisticated form of playfulness that often becomes more attractive the more you experience it. Section 3C. Tension and Release. There's a dance to desire that involves both tension and resolution, both mystery and revelation, both anticipation and fulfillment. And understanding this rhythm can help explain why desire sometimes builds more through what's unsaid than what's explicit. Some tension is good, not the tension of game playing or manipulation, not the tension of mixed signals or hot and cold behavior, but the natural tension of not knowing quite where things are going, of anticipation, of wondering about someone's inner world. This is why texting can sometimes build attraction more effectively than constant in-person contact. The gaps between messages create space for anticipation. You wonder what they're doing, whether they're thinking about you, what they'll say next. Your mind fills in the blanks, and often fills them in favorably. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about the natural rhythm of contact and space, of engagement and reflection. It's why a meaningful glance held just a moment longer than necessary can feel charged. There's a question in that moment. What does this mean? What are they thinking? And that question creates tension. It's why the progression from friendship to something more can be so compelling. There's uncertainty and possibility hanging in the air. The moment before a first kiss, when you both know it's coming but it hasn't happened yet, when that tension is almost unbearable. That anticipation is its own form of desire. But tension alone isn't enough. And this is crucial. There also needs to be release. Moments of connection, vulnerability, honesty. The confession that breaks the tension. The first kiss that finally happens. The conversation where you both acknowledge what's building between you. Without release, tension just becomes frustration or anxiety. The most compelling dynamic involves a rhythm. Building tension through mystery, anticipation, or uncertainty, then releasing it through connection, clarity, or intimacy, then building it again in new ways. It's the difference between a slow burn, which can be incredibly compelling, and being stuck in uncertainty, which just feels bad. This rhythm of tension and release, of mystery and revelation, of anticipation and fulfillment keeps desire dynamic rather than static. It's why relationships that have some element of the unknown, where you're still discovering new things about each other, where there are still surprises, tend to maintain desire better than relationships where everything is completely predictable. For women with responsive desire, this dance can be particularly important. The tension creates engagement and heightened attention, while the release creates those positive emotional experiences that allow desire to build. Section 3D. Witnessing growth and transformation. Sometimes desire develops when we witness someone grow or transform in some way. And this is one of the more unexpected catalysts, but it's surprisingly powerful. Maybe you meet someone when they're struggling with something, a career transition, a personal challenge, grief, self-doubt. And over time, you watch them work through it with courage and persistence. There's something deeply attractive about witnessing someone face difficulty without falling apart, about seeing resilience and determination in action. Maybe someone is initially shy or reserved and gradually becomes more confident and self-expressed as they feel safer with you. Watching someone bloom, knowing that you've created a space where that blooming is possible, creates a unique bond and can spark or deepen attraction. Maybe someone shares a dream they're pursuing, starting a business, writing a book, learning a new skill, training for a challenge, and you get to witness their dedication and progress. Seeing someone work towards something meaningful, seeing them persist through setbacks, seeing them grow in competence and confidence, this reveals character in ways that static interactions never could. There's something compelling about witnessing someone become more fully themselves, about seeing someone's potential unfold. It creates a unique form of intimacy. You become part of their journey, not just an observer of their current state. You hold the knowledge of where they were and where they are now, and that creates connection. This also works in reverse, and it's equally powerful. When someone witnesses and supports your own growth, when they believe in you and celebrate your progress, when they see your potential even when you're struggling to see it yourself, it can create feelings of attraction and deep appreciation. Being seen in your becoming, not just your being, is profoundly validating. The transformations don't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's small shifts, someone learning to set better boundaries, becoming more emotionally articulate, developing a new interest, or working through old patterns. The scale matters less than the direction and the effort. What makes this a catalyst for desire is that it reveals dynamism. This person isn't static. They're growing, evolving, working on themselves. And that suggests that a relationship with them will also be dynamic, that there will always be new dimensions to discover. We've covered the building blocks and catalysts. Now let's address some of the psychological and social factors that influence how desire develops specifically for women. Part 4. The Feminine Psychology of Desire. 22 minutes. Socialization and the permission to desire. We can't talk about women's desire without acknowledging the social context in which it develops, and this is perhaps one of the most important sections of our entire discussion, because it reveals how deeply external factors shape internal experiences. Many women have been socialized with contradictory, sometimes downright confusing messages about desire. On one hand, they're expected to be attractive and desirable. There's enormous pressure to be pretty, to be appealing, to be wanted. Entire industries exist to help women become more desirable. The message is clear. Being desired is valuable, important, a measure of worth. On the other hand, women are often shamed, explicitly or implicitly, for openly expressing desire or sexuality. There's a narrow window of acceptable female sexuality, desirable but not too sexual, attractive but not threatening, available but not too available. Step outside that window in either direction, and you risk being labeled with terms that have no male equivalent in their harshness. Consider the different standards applied. A man who has multiple partners or expresses sexual interest openly is often seen as virile, confident, masculine. A woman doing the same risks being judged harshly. A man who initiates physical intimacy is confident. A woman who does the same might be seen as too forward, desperate, or inappropriately aggressive. These aren't just abstract cultural messages, they become internalized. Many women grow up learning, sometimes unconsciously, that their desire is something to be managed, controlled, or hidden rather than expressed and celebrated. They learn that being the object of desire is safe and acceptable, but being the subject of desire, actively wanting, initiating, expressing sexual interest, is risky. The result can be an internalized conflict about allowing themselves to feel and act on attraction. Even when a woman feels desire, she might hesitate to show it, fearing judgment, rejection, or being seen as too much. This internal censorship isn't conscious or deliberate. It's often automatic, the result of years of messaging about what's acceptable for women. This creates an additional break in the dual control model we discussed earlier. For desire to emerge, many women need not just the right person and the right context, but also internal permission to feel what they're feeling. They need to overcome that internalized voice that questions whether it's okay to want this, whether wanting it makes them something negative, whether expressing it will have consequences. This is one reason why emotional safety is so crucial. When a woman feels that her desire won't be judged, weaponized, or used against her, when she feels she can express or not express interest without negative consequences, it creates space for authentic desire to emerge. When a man responds to her expression of interest not with triumphalism or entitlement, but with matched enthusiasm and continued respect, it reinforces that her desire is welcome. It's also why patience matters in ways that might not be immediately obvious. Rushing someone toward physical intimacy before they've given themselves internal permission to want it can actually activate the brake system more strongly. It can trigger all those internalized messages about needing to be careful, about not being too available, about protecting themselves. Going slower, creating space for desire to build at its own pace, can paradoxically lead to stronger, more authentic desire, because it allows the internal permission to develop naturally. The whole person context. Research has consistently shown that for many women, desire doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's influenced by a whole array of contextual factors that might seem unrelated to the person they're with or to sexuality itself. This is sometimes called contextual sensitivity, and it means that desire can fluctuate based on factors that have nothing directly to do with attraction. How stressed is she feeling? How does she feel about her body that day? What else is happening in her life? Is she worried about work, family, finances? Does she feel resentful about an unequal distribution of household labor? Does she feel appreciated and valued in general, not just sexually? Dr. Rosemary Basson, a researcher in female sexuality, developed what's called the circular model of female sexual response, which recognizes that for many women, desire emerges from context rather than spontaneously. The traditional linear model, spontaneous desire leads to arousal, leads to satisfaction, doesn't capture how desire actually works for many women. Instead, Basson's model suggests that many women might begin from a sexually neutral state. They're not thinking about sex or feeling spontaneous desire. But if the context is right, they're feeling emotionally close to their partner, stress is low, they feel good about themselves, the environment is conducive, they might be receptive to sexual cues. And it's through that receptivity and the positive experiences that follow that desire actually emerges. Understanding this can shift perspective dramatically. If a woman doesn't seem immediately attracted, it might not be a fixed judgment about you. It might be that the context isn't right yet. Maybe she's overwhelmed with work stress and literally doesn't have mental or emotional bandwidth for romance. Maybe she's going through a difficult family situation and her emotional resources are devoted elsewhere. Maybe she's recovering from a past relationship wound, and her protective mechanisms are still activated. Maybe she's dealing with body image issues, or hormone fluctuations, or health concerns that affect how she experiences her own embodiment. Maybe there are practical stressors, financial worry, caregiving responsibilities, sleep deprivation, that make desire feel inaccessible even when attraction exists intellectually. This contextual sensitivity isn't weakness or overthinking. It's actually sophisticated integration. Women are often socialized to be highly attuned to their environment, to consider multiple factors simultaneously, to be aware of potential risks and consequences. This creates a psychology where desire can't be compartmentalized from the rest of life experience. This doesn't mean you should wait indefinitely or ignore genuine disinterest, but it does mean that initial lukewarm responses aren't always final verdicts. It means that sometimes the best thing you can do to create space for desire to develop isn't something directly romantic. It's reducing stress, creating emotional safety, being patient while someone navigates a difficult period, or simply providing consistent, low-pressure companionship while context shifts. Section 4C. The search for safety in a world that isn't always safe. This is a sensitive topic, but it's crucial to address honestly. Many women have had negative sexual or relationship experiences. According to various studies, somewhere between 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual assault or attempted assault. Many more have experienced pressure, coercion, boundary violations, or relationships where their needs were dismissed or their autonomy wasn't fully respected. Even women who haven't experienced these things directly live in a world where they're constantly aware of the risks. They've heard the stories. They've been taught to be careful. Don't walk alone at night. Watch your drink. Don't lead men on. But also don't be rude because that might provoke anger. The awareness of potential danger is woven into the fabric of being a woman in a way that men often don't fully recognize. This creates a fundamental need to assess safety before desire can fully emerge. And I want to be clear, this isn't conscious paranoia or unfair suspicion. It's often an automatic protective mechanism, a wisdom of the body and unconscious mind that's saying, gather more information before becoming vulnerable. This is why small demonstrations of respect for boundaries matter enormously. When someone asks before touching, when they check in about comfort levels, when they can handle no gracefully without sulking or pressuring, when they stop immediately when asked, these moments send powerful signals about safety. It's why consent culture isn't just about legal protection. It's about creating the conditions where desire can flourish. When a woman knows that her no will be respected, she can relax into exploring her yes. When she knows that boundaries won't be tested or pushed, that slowing down won't be met with frustration, that she has full autonomy over her own body and choices, the brake system we discussed earlier can start to release. It's also why sometimes women need time to observe someone across different contexts before desire develops. They're unconsciously or consciously assessing, is this person safe? Will they respect my no? Will they be careful with my vulnerability? How do they handle frustration or disappointment? Do they feel entitled to my body or my attention? Can they regulate their own emotions, or will I need to manage them? These assessments can't be made quickly or from a single interaction. They require watching someone in various situations, how they respond when they don't get what they want, how they talk about women in general, how they handle power dynamics, whether they respect other people's boundaries even when it's inconvenient. This might seem unfair from a male perspective. Why should he be treated with suspicion when he hasn't done anything wrong? But understanding the broader context helps. It's not personal suspicion. It's appropriate caution in a world where the consequences of misjudgment can be severe. The good news is that consistently demonstrating safety, respect, and genuine care creates trust more powerfully than any words could. Actions speak, and they speak loudly. And for many women, that growing sense of safety is what allows desire to finally emerge without conflict or fear. Section 4D. The attraction to growth-oriented partners. Research has suggested that many women are particularly attracted to partners who demonstrate what's called a growth mindset. People who are curious, who reflect on themselves, who are willing to learn and evolve. And this isn't superficial preference. It connects to deep needs around safety, partnership, and long-term compatibility. This might manifest as someone who can acknowledge when they're wrong without becoming defensive or making excuses. In a culture that often teaches men that admitting fault is weakness, a man who can say, "I was wrong. I see that now, thank you for pointing it out," demonstrates both confidence and humility. It shows up as someone who asks questions about how to be a better partner, friend, or person. How can I support you better? What do you need from me right now? I want to understand. Help me see your perspective. These questions signal that someone sees relationships as collaborative rather than fixed, that they're willing to adjust and grow. It appears in someone who's interested in understanding themselves and others more deeply. Someone who reads, who goes to therapy or does personal development work, who has real conversations about emotions and experiences, who's curious about psychology, relationships, and human nature. This signals that they won't be stagnant, that there will always be new depth to discover. It's evident in how someone responds to feedback. Do they get defensive and shut down? Do they explain why the feedback is wrong or unfair? Or can they sit with criticism, consider it honestly, and actually change behavior when the feedback is valid? The ability to receive feedback with curiosity rather than defensiveness is enormously attractive because it suggests that conflict won't be a battle, but an opportunity for understanding. This quality often isn't apparent immediately. Someone can perform openness on a first date. Everyone can say they're open to feedback in the abstract. But it reveals itself over time through various interactions. How do they handle being wrong about a small fact? How do they respond when their perspective is challenged? How do they react when someone has a different need or preference? For many women, watching someone handle challenges with maturity, approach conflict with wisdom, or work on themselves consistently can be a major factor in developing attraction. Why? Because it signals that this person will be able to navigate the inevitable challenges of a relationship. It suggests that they won't be static or stuck, that partnership with them will involve mutual growth. There's also something deeply attractive about someone who sees their own imperfections clearly and is actively working on them. Not from a place of self-hatred, but from genuine desire to be better. The man who says, "I'm working on being less reactive when I'm stressed," or "I'm trying to be better at expressing appreciation," is demonstrating self-awareness and commitment to growth. This is particularly meaningful for women who've been in relationships with men who were rigid, defensive, or unwilling to change. The contrast is powerful. A growth-oriented partner suggests safety in a different way. Not just physical safety, but the safety of knowing that if problems arise, this person will work with you to address them, rather than dismissing them or blaming you. It also suggests that desire won't be static. If both people are growing and evolving, the relationship stays dynamic. There will always be new dimensions to discover, new ways to connect, new depths to explore. For women thinking long-term, this quality can transform someone from attractive now to attractive indefinitely. Understanding these psychological factors helps explain why desire might develop over time rather than appearing instantly. The socialization around desire, the contextual sensitivity, the need for safety, the attraction to growth, all of these mean that desire for many women is a complex emergence rather than a simple spark. But let's get practical now. What does this actually look like in real-world situations? Part 5. Practical applications and real-world scenarios. 22 minutes. Section 5A. The friendship to romance path. One of the most common scenarios where desire develops over time is the friendship to romance trajectory. Research suggests that a significant number of romantic relationships, some studies suggest as many as 40 to 50%, actually begin as friendships. This contradicts the cultural narrative that romance and friendship are separate categories, but it aligns perfectly with what we know about responsive desire. What happens in these situations? Often, someone gets to know another person without the pressure or performance of a romantic context. There's no first date anxiety, no need to impress, no evaluation of, is this person relationship material, happening explicitly. Instead, you're just two people who enjoy each other's company, share interests, or are part of the same social circle. In this low-pressure environment, something important happens. You see each other in various situations, stressed and relaxed, serious and silly, vulnerable and strong. You witness how they treat others, how they handle challenges, what makes them laugh, what they care about. You build trust and emotional intimacy without sexual tension clouding the picture. You develop inside jokes, shared references, comfortable silences. You become integrated into each other's lives in organic ways. Then, at some point, something shifts. Maybe there's a moment of unexpected physical awareness. You notice the way they laugh, the warmth in their eyes when they look at you, the way they touch your arm when making a point. Maybe accumulated appreciation and admiration reaches a tipping point where you suddenly realize, wait, I think I have feelings for this person. Maybe one person has an experience of suddenly seeing the other differently. They show up to an event looking particularly attractive, or you see them in a new context that highlights qualities you hadn't fully noticed. Sometimes it's triggered by circumstance. One person gets into a relationship with someone else, and the other realizes they feel jealous in a way that friendship alone wouldn't explain. Or they have a deep conversation one night, and there's a moment of eye contact that lasts too long, that carries weight, that shifts the entire dynamic. There's also the question of how to navigate the transition. Do you confess feelings directly? Do you test the waters with slightly flirtatious behavior? Do you wait for signs of mutual interest before making a move? There's no simple answer, because every friendship is unique. But what research and experience suggest is that honest, direct communication, while scary, often works better than prolonged ambiguity. But despite the challenges, the friendship to romance path demonstrates powerfully how desire can emerge where it didn't initially exist. The person you thought of as just a friend for months or years becomes someone you can't stop thinking about, someone who makes your heart race, someone you desire deeply, not despite knowing them well, but precisely because of it. The slow burn dating scenario. Another scenario is dating someone who seems great on paper, but doesn't create immediate fireworks. Maybe they're recommended by a friend who thinks you'd be perfect together. Maybe you match on an app and their profile is interesting. Their messages are engaging. But when you meet in person, there's no immediate spark. Maybe you meet at an event and find them pleasant, easy to talk to, but not immediately captivating or exciting. The question becomes, do you give this more time? Or do you decide the absence of immediate chemistry means it won't work? And the honest answer is, it depends, and you won't know without giving it a genuine chance. In these situations, giving things time can sometimes lead to developed attraction, not because you're settling or forcing something that isn't there, but because desire has the space to emerge as you get to know the person more deeply. This requires a shift in mindset from evaluating a candidate to getting to know a human being. What does this look like practically? It might mean going on several dates, perhaps 3 to 5 at minimum, even if you're not immediately swept off your feet. Research on attraction suggests that familiarity often breeds liking, not contempt, contrary to the saying. The mere exposure effect shows that we tend to develop preference for things we encounter repeatedly, and this applies to people too. It means engaging in varied activities together rather than just drinks or dinner, which can feel like interviews. Go hiking together and see how they handle the physical challenge, how they react to beautiful views, whether they're competitive or collaborative. Visit a museum and discover what they notice, what resonates with them, how they think about art or history. Cook together and observe whether they're controlling or collaborative in the kitchen, whether they can laugh at mistakes, whether they clean as they go. Take a class together, pottery, dance, language, and watch how they learn, how they handle being a beginner, whether they encourage your efforts. Volunteer together for a cause and see what they care about beyond themselves. Attend each other's events, meet their friends, see them in their element. Each varied context reveals different facets of personality that a series of dinner dates never could. It means staying curious and open rather than making immediate judgments. Instead of thinking, there's no chemistry, ask yourself questions. What do I appreciate about this person? How do I feel after spending time with them? Energized or drained? Do I find myself thinking about our conversations? Am I curious about their life and experiences? Do they make me laugh? Do I feel comfortable being myself around them? Pay attention to how you feel, not just during time together, but after. Sometimes people don't realize they're developing feelings until they notice they're disappointed when plans get canceled, or they find themselves wanting to share interesting things with this person. Or they catch themselves thinking, I wonder what name would think about this. It also means being honest with yourself about what you're actually seeking. If you're looking for passionate, instant chemistry, that's valid, but recognize that it's one pathway to connection, not the only one. If you're open to attraction developing over time, commit to genuinely giving it space rather than hedging your bets or keeping one foot out the door. One important caveat. Giving things time doesn't mean ignoring red flags or staying in situations that feel wrong. If someone is disrespectful, if you feel uncomfortable, if your values are fundamentally misaligned, if you actively dislike spending time with them, those are reasons to end things, not reasons to persist hoping feelings will change. We're talking about situations where nothing is wrong, but nothing is immediately electrifying either. The slow burn dating scenario demonstrates that patience and varied experiences can reveal attraction that wasn't apparent initially. The person who seemed merely nice on a first date might become genuinely compelling by the fifth date as you discover their depth, their humor, their values, and as comfort and trust begin to build. Section 5C. The colleague or acquaintance who reveals depth. Sometimes desire develops for someone you've known in a limited context, a coworker you see in meetings, an acquaintance from a social group or hobby community, someone you encounter regularly but casually at the gym or coffee shop or through mutual friends. You might have a general impression of this person: professional, friendly, competent, pleasant, but they exist in a specific category in your mind. They're the person from work, or my friend's friend, or the guy at yoga class. There's familiarity without real knowing, recognition without depth. The shift often happens when you encounter them in a different context or discover unexpected depth. Maybe you end up at the same party and actually have a real conversation for the first time, moving beyond pleasantries to discover you share a passion for something, or have similar backgrounds, or make each other laugh in ways you didn't expect. Maybe you see them handle a crisis at work with grace and competence that reveals character you hadn't witnessed before. Maybe you discover they have a skill or interest you never knew about. They're an incredible photographer. They volunteer with an organization you care about. They speak 3 languages. They write poetry. They're passionate about environmental conservation. Suddenly, this person who was somewhat two-dimensional becomes three-dimensional, and with that added dimension comes the possibility of attraction. This scenario demonstrates how easily we can overlook people when we only see them in limited contexts. The coworker you see only in professional mode might be completely different. Funnier, more vulnerable, more passionate, more interesting outside the office. The acquaintance you've exchanged pleasantries with at social gatherings might become fascinating once you actually have a substantive conversation. What enables the shift is usually one of 2 things: a change in context that reveals different facets of personality, or deepening of interaction that moves beyond surface-level exchange. Sometimes it requires initiative, suggesting coffee one-on-one instead of just seeing someone in group settings, asking questions that go beyond small talk, sharing something personal that invites reciprocal sharing. The challenge here is the category shift. Once someone exists in a particular box in your mind, it can be hard to see them differently. They've been just a colleague or just an acquaintance for so long that reconceptualizing them as a potential romantic interest requires active reframing. But when it happens, When you suddenly see someone you've known casually in a completely new light, it can be particularly compelling precisely because it's unexpected. Section 5D. Rekindled or second chance scenarios. Sometimes people reconnect after years apart and find attraction where it didn't exist before, or find that attraction that fizzled has reignited. Maybe they knew each other in college but weren't interested romantically. They were in different social circles, dating other people, or one was interested but the timing wasn't right. Maybe they dated briefly years ago and it didn't work out. They were too young, in different life stages, or simply not ready. Maybe they were friends who lost touch as life took them in different directions. Years later, maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 20, they reconnect. Perhaps they're both back in their hometown for the holidays and run into each other. Maybe they match on a dating app and realize with surprise that they know each other from the past. Maybe they reconnect at a reunion, or through social media, or because their lives circle back to the same city or industry. What they find is that they're different people now. They've grown, learned, healed, evolved. They've had relationships that taught them what they need and don't need. They've developed careers, hobbies, sense of self. They've faced challenges that matured them. They've done therapy, traveled, experienced loss and joy and transformation. The person they are at 35 is substantially different from who they were at 22, and in that new context, with new versions of themselves, attraction can spark in ways it didn't before. The qualities that seemed unremarkable or even off-putting at 22, maybe someone was too serious, too ambitious, too quiet, might be exactly what's attractive at 35. The maturity that seemed boring might now seem stable and attractive. The intensity that seemed overwhelming might now seem passionate and engaging. This demonstrates that attraction isn't always about the fixed qualities of two people, but about the intersection of who they are at a particular time, in a particular context, with particular life experiences shaping their needs and readiness. The same two people might have no chemistry at one point in life and strong chemistry at another, not because they're pretending or forcing something, but because they've genuinely changed, and so has what they're capable of offering and receiving. These second-chance scenarios can be particularly powerful because they combine novelty with familiarity. There's comfort in knowing someone's history, understanding their context, having shared references. But there's also the excitement of discovery, learning who they've become, seeing them with new eyes, experiencing them in a completely different life stage. Section 5E. Common threads across scenarios. What all these scenarios share is time, varied context, and deepening knowledge. Whether it's friendship becoming romance, slow burn dating, discovering an acquaintance's depth, or reconnecting with someone from the past, the pattern is consistent. Attraction develops as people become more fully known, as trust builds, as context allows different facets of personality to emerge. They also share the element of low or reduced pressure. When there's space to get to know someone without constant evaluation of romantic potential, desire often has more room to emerge naturally. The irony is that trying less hard to make attraction happen sometimes allows it to happen more readily. These scenarios illustrate possibilities, but we also need to address important boundaries and limitations. When does giving things time make sense, and when is it actually ignoring incompatibility or lack of interest? That's what we need to explore next. Part 6. Crucial distinctions and ethical considerations. Section 6A. Patience versus pressure. There's a crucial difference between giving attraction time to develop and pressuring someone who's clearly not interested. Patience means being present and authentic while allowing natural connection to unfold at its own pace. It means continuing to get to know someone while staying attuned to their responses. It means being okay with uncertainty and not needing immediate resolution. Pressure means pushing for more intimacy than someone is comfortable with, repeatedly bringing up romantic interest after someone has declined, making someone feel guilty for not reciprocating feelings, or wearing down boundaries through persistence. The key distinction is agency. Patience respects the other person's agency completely. Pressure seeks to override or circumvent it. Section 6B. Reading signals, Interest versus disinterest. How do you distinguish between not attracted yet and not attracted, period? Here are some signals of genuine openness where attraction might develop. They continue to engage in conversation and seem curious about you. They accept invitations to spend time together. They initiate contact or make plans sometimes. They share personal information and seem comfortable being vulnerable. Their body language is open, even if not overtly flirtatious. They seem to enjoy your company and laugh genuinely. Signals of disinterest that should be respected. They consistently decline invitations or cancel plans. Responses are brief and don't invite further conversation. They don't initiate contact or make effort to spend time together. They mention being interested in someone else or not looking for romance. They explicitly state they only see you as a friend. Their body language is closed, or they maintain consistent physical distance, the fundamental principle. Enthusiastic participation matters. If someone isn't participating enthusiastically in getting to know you, that's important information. Section 6C. The danger of the convince her mentality. We need to directly address a problematic mindset. The idea that women's disinterest is a challenge to overcome or a test to pass. This mentality is harmful for several reasons. First, it doesn't respect women's agency and judgment. Second, it often leads to boundary violations in the name of persistence. Third, it confuses the genuine development of attraction with manipulation or wearing someone down. The framework we've been discussing, how desire can develop over time, is about understanding human psychology, not about overriding someone's expressed preferences. It's descriptive, not prescriptive. It explains what can happen naturally, not what you should try to make happen. If someone has clearly expressed disinterest, that should be respected. Full stop. The possibility that attraction could theoretically develop doesn't justify ignoring their stated preferences. Section 6D. Authenticity and self-respect. Finally, in any situation where you're hoping attraction might develop, you need to maintain your own authenticity and self-respect. This means not pretending to be someone you're not to seem more attractive. It means not accepting treatment that doesn't feel good in hopes that things will change. It means not putting your life on hold indefinitely waiting for someone to develop feelings. It also means being honest with yourself. If you've been getting to know someone for months and there's no indication of growing attraction, you might be holding on to hope rather than reality. If you're always the one initiating and putting in effort, that imbalance is information. Continued presence and authentic connection can shift perceptions. Creating the right context, emotional safety, novel experiences, genuine curiosity, demonstrated character matters enormously. Different people have different timelines for developing attraction. Friendship and romance aren't always mutually exclusive categories, but this understanding must be held alongside crucial ethical boundaries. Respect for explicit disinterest is non-negotiable. Patience is not the same as pressure. Authenticity matters more than strategy. Both people's agency and dignity must be maintained. Sometimes people just aren't compatible, and that's okay. Ultimately, this conversation is about expanding our understanding of how human connection works. We live in a culture that often emphasizes instant chemistry, love at first sight, and immediate passion. These experiences are real and valuable, but they're not the only pathway to genuine desire and deep connection. For people who felt frustrated that they don't create instant attraction, this understanding offers hope, not as a technique or strategy, but as a framework for authentic connection. For people trying to understand their own patterns of attraction, this offers validation. If you're someone who develops attraction slowly, you're not broken or overthinking. You might simply have a responsive desire pattern that requires context, trust, and emotional intimacy to activate. And for anyone navigating the complex world of human connection, this offers patience and nuance. Not everyone worth knowing will be obviously compelling in the first conversation. Not every meaningful connection begins with fireworks. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Desire is complex, contextual, and deeply human. It can surprise us. It can develop where we didn't expect it and fail to appear where we thought it would. The goal isn't to engineer attraction or force connection. The goal is to create authentic opportunities for genuine desire to emerge if it's going to. That means showing up authentically, creating safe and engaging contexts for connection, demonstrating character consistently, staying curious and present, and respecting both your own and others' agency throughout. Sometimes desire develops. Sometimes it doesn't. Both outcomes teach us something about compatibility, timing, and the beautiful unpredictability of human connection. Be patient, be authentic, be respectful, and trust that the right connections will reveal themselves in their own time. Thank you for exploring this topic with me.